welcome back to Nuts and Smiles. Hey everyone! So today I have a video that is hopefully helpful for some of you guys. I was originally going to do a video recommending fictional books, YA books that I feel like represent mental health well, but after kind of thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I feel like it would be more helpful and honestly better if I did a video where I recommended my top 3 books to better your mental health. So these books here, they are fictional books, but don't worry, they're not those kind of stereotypical, I don't know, self-help books. I've read so many from like really bad self-help books to some really great ones. And I think the one thing I don't like about self-help books, is specifically self-help books related around mental illness, is that a lot of them, or a lot of the authors, kind of go in with this narrative of like, here, let me fix you, like here's what's wrong, and I don't know, I really don't like that. I think mental illness is very personal, and although there is sort of labels like this is depression, this is anxiety, I think it's very personal to each individual, and I don't think it's something you can kind of just put this umbrella over like, okay, here's just a general thing and it'll help everyone, you know what I mean? These books specifically I absolutely love because they're not, I guess you could say, like mental health books. Like if you were to look up the labels, you know, like what genre they fall under, they wouldn't necessarily fall under self-help or mental health. But personally, from my just personal experience reading them and how they have helped me, I think that they can honestly really help anyone who's struggling with anxiety, who's struggling with body image issues, who's struggling with depression. This is just my personal experience with the books and my opinion of the books. So some of you guys may have read these or will read these and won't feel the same about them. So please take my opinions with a grain of salt. But before we get into this video, I wanted to say that this video is so kindly sponsored by BetterHelp, which I think is an incredible app, and I wish it was, it existed when I was younger. It is a service that provides professional counseling from your phone, from your computer, and take a test and it'll match you with a therapist and you can schedule an appointment. I know one of the biggest, like, things, I guess you could say, that keeps people from going and seeking counseling or therapy is that fear of like just talking to people, of just like making the appointment, making counseling and therapy available right from your phone. So if you're someone who feels better, you know, messaging someone and talking that way, then I think BetterHelp is the app for you. So I'll have a link down below if you want to check it out. I think it's a lot cheaper than traditional therapy for anyone who can't afford it, and they also, believe it or not, offer financial aid, which is incredible. So thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video, and let us get into the top 3 books. I'm so excited. We're gonna start from number 3 and then we're gonna work our way to number 1, which is my favorite, and I feel like I can talk about it forever. Okay, so book number 1 is for all of my creative people out there, which I feel like is all of you. Even if you don't, I think, technically see yourself as a creative person, I think we all have a part of us that seeks to create things and make things in this beautiful world. All the artists, the writers, the aspiring artists, writers, authors, graphic designers, like whatever, if you have a passion or a goal or a career dream, or if you just have a hobby that falls into more of the creative field, I think this book could really help you, especially if you're someone who gets a lot of anxiety and stress from your work or from just creating things. Process of creating things, it is fun and exciting, you know. For me, sitting down at a laptop and writing is the best. Like, it can be very stress relieving, but it could also be very stress inducing. This book is for all of you guys out there. I have read it 3 times. I got 2 of my friends to read it as well as my mom. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Now I know you guys are probably like, wait, this is a mental health book, but it's okay, it's not technically, but I think it can, like, honestly, it has relieved so much of the stress that I've experienced from, like, you know, I'm an aspiring writer, and I think sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a writer, it's great, writing's awesome, and then sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna fail and never publish a book and my writing sucks. You guys know the sort of mental spiral that you can kind of just go into, especially with writing, but this book is everything. Like, can you see all the sticky tabs I have in here? Like, let me just do a little flip through for you guys so you guys can see how much I've annotated this book. Every page has some quote, some line, something. He became a poet the way other men become monks. as a devotional practice, as an act of love, and as a lifelong commitment to the search for grace and transcendence. I think this is probably a very good way to become a poet, or become anything really that calls to your heart and brings you to life. Appreciate the value of your own joy. Skating made her feel alive and ageless. She stopped feeling like she was nothing more than a consumer, nothing more than the sum of her daily obligations and duties. She was making something of herself, making something with herself. It was a revolution. I love this book so much. Oh my. Okay, so can you see, like, that was just a little snippet. For anyone who doesn't know, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I personally didn't read the book, but I know it was a phenomenon. This book is just, it talks about the creative process in a way that I've never heard anyone talk about it before. She goes into detail about fear and anxiety and all the things that stop us from creating things. And just that feeling of like, oh, if I can't make it perfect, I'm not gonna make it at all. Just totally turns the idea of creating on its head, and her sort of overall opinion about writing, about making art, about all of these different things is that you need to do it out of the love and out of the sort of like the exhale that you feel when you create something, when you get that idea out of your head, and you need to focus on that, and you need to keep creating even when I guess you could say the external rewards aren't matching the internal rewards that you get. It's not really a spiritual book. I don't want to kind of clump it into that category, but she does kind of talk about creative ideas and inspiration as these sort of like whimsical things that come to you only like when you're pursuing what you want to do, versus you just sitting there like, hey, inspiration, I'm waiting for you to strike me, now would be a good time. You need to do what you love every single day, and all those things will come to you, and everything you're searching for is coming to you and trying to find you, and the fear and the anxiety is just like your body's response to sort of climbing up that mountain, and the higher you get to the peak, the more you feel that. A beautiful book, and like I said, the quotes, the lines, her just take on life in general is incredible. And after I finished reading this book, I constantly go back to this book whenever I feel like I'm getting like too stuck in my head, and just whenever I feel really anxious and that anxiety starts to kind of overcome and stop me from writing or stop me from creating something. I go back to this book, and it reminds me why I'm creating, and that sort of why reason takes away all the fear and the anxiety and the sadness that might come with creating. And I just think it's such an amazing book. So yes, for all the creatives out there, this is the book. If you haven't read it, please, please, please read it. It's fantastic. Okay, to book number 2 here is for everyone, okay? I have talked about this book before, and you're gonna hear me talk about it again because it is incredible, specifically for people who don't really like the more kind of spiritual stuff, I guess you could say, and like more hard science. This is a book that will, if you read it front to back and you follow and make the changes that the book suggests you make and start doing sort of the exercises that are in the book, I promise you, your entire the way you think and your perspective on life will change. The book is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This book, is it more sticky tab than this one? I don't know. I think, I don't know. A lot of sticky tabs have fallen out because like the first one, I have reread this twice now, and it is part of my morning routine to go and read a chapter from this book. I will just select a random chapter. Like that's how much I love it, that I need to read it every day just to remind myself of the things that it discusses and to keep myself like in equilibrium. So psycho-cybernetics, that sounds like a really big scary word. You know what computers are, right? So computers work in a way in which they gather information and collect information that fits into a system, right? This book relates the human mind to a computer, which it really honestly is. A computer works in a very similar way to how the human brain works, right? It collects data and it sort of finds similar data and builds a system off of that, right? So our brain, we have ideas, we have morals, we have sort of a standard and beliefs, right? We have a belief system, and anything that doesn't fit in that, our brain tends to push out. The whole book is about the idea of oneself. So how you see yourself literally affects everything in your life. And this is like kind of like a common known fact. You hear it a lot, but trust me, this book goes into detail and it breaks it down in a way that you've never seen before. A lot of the reasons why we fall into depression and anxiety is because we have a very, very negative self-image. And I think one of the most stressful things is, especially with people who don't struggle with depression or anxiety, is they'll be like, oh, just think positive, right? I think that's like one of the worst things you can say to someone who is suffering from any sort of mental illness, because it's not an easy thing. And this is a book that, the first book I've ever read that acknowledges that thinking positive is not an easy thing, and it breaks down the science behind it and how you can actually think positive, I guess you could say, and how it's a multi-step thing, and it's not just like, okay, I'm just gonna be happy today, okay, cool. For some people that works, you know. For some people, they can wake up and be like, I'm just gonna be happy, you know, think good thoughts, and they're good to go. But for most people, it's, if you've had a really negative self-image for a very, very, very long time, it's not something that can be changed like this. It's something that requires steps, and this is a book that breaks it down. And what's wonderful is that this whole book is told in case studies. So it talks about, uses real people and real situations as examples, and it has all of these incredible steps. And it's just like, let me just read you one quote from this, okay? So this one passage here talks about dreams, right? So it says, dreams can provide a map to your internal guidance system. A thought implanted during internal scanning often becomes an element in a dream. Whatever is on your mind as you're falling asleep tends to appear in some form that night in your dream. But in your dreaming state, your subconscious mind can be altered to your stressors non-judgmentally without magnifying and awfulizing them. It can find creative and intuitive solutions that your conscious mind would never have been able to. It goes into all sorts of aspects of the mind, from dreaming to just like that little sort of negative repetitive system that you have in your head, and it breaks it down and shows you how you can just really change your life. Psycho-Cybernetics is just so good, and it's an older book too. I got my copy off of Thrift Books for $3, so you can definitely, like, it's a very affordable book, and it's worth the investment, you guys. It is worth the investment. The very last book I have on here, I know some of you guys know I'm going to be talking about this one. This book is more specifically geared towards women, but I still think men should read it because I think it's incredibly insightful, and it's so informative, and it is amazing, and I love it so much. And this is another book that I constantly go back and reread. The Women Who Run with Wolves. Out of all of these books, if there is one specifically that I think every woman should read, it is this one. I talked about it forever and ever in my wrap-up video, I think. This book is by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and she is, okay, the last time I did this, I had to make a whole list. I'm gonna do it again because she has so many, she is just so incredibly intelligent. She's a psychologist, she's an anthropologist, she's a jungle, oh, what was it? Jungle something, I don't know. I'm gonna put the whole list here. But what I love the most is that the author, she is also a woman who grew up with stories, who grew up with mythology. She's a very spiritual person. She understands the world through stories, just like we do. And she's able to connect science and mythology and stories and explain psychology for women through stories, through archetypes, through, you know, the story of Bluebeard, the story of the big bad wolf, you know, the story, the ugly duckling. She uses these stories to explain deeper and larger psychological concepts that otherwise would just kind of, you know, be hard to resonate with and hard to understand. And she explains it in a way that's so incredibly beautiful. And just, I think the reason why this book means so much to me is because it explains things. You know, I think everyone has had that moment where they're like, why do I think this way? Why is my brain like, why do I have to go down this route? Like, worst case scenario, like everything's gonna fail. We all have that moment where we wonder why we think the way we do, why we act the way we do. I'm sure everyone has maybe done something and then like taken a step back and been like, why did I do that? Why is my brain thinking this way? Why am I just why, right? That whole why. Everyone has asked themselves why, and this book is here's why. I love it. So I'm not gonna cry, but let me just real quick, I'm just gonna show you the table of context in the beginning because I think it's so cool. So the stories, right? So it has the howl, resurrecting of the wild woman, stalking the intruder, retrieval of intuition, the mate, union with another, hunting when the heart is a lonely hunter, finding one's pack, belonging as a blessing, joyous body, the wild flesh, self-preservation, identifying leg traps, cages, and poison bait. A big part of this book is the wild woman archetype, and this author, she explains the wild woman archetype as the woman that we each have within us, right? That wants to create, that wants to explore, that wants to like live life to its fullest, that wants to go out there without boundaries, without shoes, with hair like in the wind, you know. This wild woman archetype that you see in every single culture, in different religions. That's the other thing that's really interesting about this book too, is that she brings in a lot of different cultural stories. So it's not just like all the myths from one culture, it's like from across the world, and she connects everything. How she is able to experience so much in life, learn so much from school. Like I said, she has a PhD, and then also just bring in her own personal experiences and thoughts and ideas and different cultural ideas, and just put it all together in a way that is just so beautiful, and like it just helped me so much in just understanding myself. And I think that's the biggest thing, is this book will help you understand yourself, and through that understand your mental health and better your mental health. And that is why it is the top #1 on my list right now, and why I want all of you guys to pick it up and read it. This book I also bought from thrift books. I think I got it for like $3. Yes, this is my baby. This is my Bible. I call it my Bible. Whenever people see it, they're like, what is that? I'm like, this is my Bible. These are all my Bibles. Until next time, keep reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.